Do you suffer from having all these dreams and goals in your mind, but never being able to create the habits needed to make it happen? Would you like to learn how to change that? Do you want it to be easier than ever and become more consistent in the process? Well then, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Habit Makers Starter Kit. For the low price of watching this episode of Young Humanity, you too can get the necessary skills to better your life. So you want to start a new habit. Congratulations, that's a very worthy endeavor. Now, looking at the rule of 2 inside of our Habit Maker Starter Kit, it's going to help you start sooner. It's going to be easier than ever to start. You'll become more consistent and you'll actually look forward to building these habits. Now, I've got 3 instances of where we can apply this rule of 2 that's going to help you really start down the path and the journey of creating these new habits. We want your mind to kind of passively be working on these habits in your off time, right? We need it to be almost an urge for you to do. Now, in the habit building world, it never truly becomes automatic. You going to the gym or learning an instrument is never going to be automatic. There's always going to be some need of motivation on your side. But if we can get your brain to subconsciously think about these, that means we're on the right track. And I'm hoping through this video, through using the rule of 2, that we can start to help turn our brains and train them a bit more to be able to focus and subconsciously make us really want to do these things. So let's look at the first instance of the rule of 2. Don't wait 2 or more days to start a new habit. Now, I learned this from a little while ago from a sermon I listened to at my church by Brett Ullman. Now, he referred to it as actually 3 days, but I found in my own personal experience that 2 days seems to be the threshold that's worked the best for me. So what do I mean by that? It means if you have a new habit in mind, you need to go do it right away. You need to start it within at least the next 2 days, because by the end of those 2 days, you're probably not going to do it. I would say 99% of the habits that we want to start in our lives are very doable either same day or very soon afterwards. I know for me personally, I've always been caught up in the big grandiose picture of me starting a habit, and I can't wait to reach those end goals of having the big gains or drawing like a pro or playing guitar like I am in a band. And yeah, I think it's easy for our brains to love this shiny new idea. We have this rosy image of this future ahead of us that once we start building this habit, it's going to be easy. Now, the problem I find with that, especially when we just look towards the future, is that rosy kind of goals and visions we have never actually comes to reality. We never seem to focus enough on the present to create the change we need to in our lives to actually meet that future goal and visions that we have. We seldomly want to do the hard work now, and that makes it even harder for that future to ever become a reality, and that's why we need to stick to the rule of 2 in this instance. By forcing ourselves to start within 2 days, that future that we have, those goals, those visions we always dreamed of, actually can become a reality, but we have to actually start this habit to have that kind of chance. So, like I said, you must start it within the first 2 days of coming up with this great idea. In fact, I implore you to start it the day you come up with it. I know that might not always be easy, but doing anything is better than doing nothing. Now you might be wondering, but how do I actually start it? It might be cool that I have this great idea and I know when I'm supposed to start it within the next 2 days, but what can I do to actually begin it? And that's where the second instance of using the rule of 2 really applies. Start with the 2-minute rule. I first discovered this 2-minute rule by reading Atomic Habits by James Clear, which we've talked about in a previous video. And I actually found it to be quite the difference maker in terms of me starting a new habit. I don't know about you at home, but I always find it really easy to think of the big end game goals of starting a new habit, right? Like we referred to earlier, it's playing that song on the guitar as a master musician, or drawing something that's just so perfect. But at the end of the day, we need to actually build the smaller building blocks to be able to start those in the first place. I think it's really easy for us to even assume that this is where we have to start. We have to aim for these big goals right away, otherwise we're never gonna make it. But in reality, we need to start with the smallest form of it yet, and that's where this rule of 2 really applies. So that's right, any new habit you start, you only dedicate 2 minutes to. You can break any new habit down to a really small form. For example, maybe it's playing the guitar. You pick it up, you time yourself for 2 minutes, and that's it. Or maybe it's going to the gym, and therefore you go to the gym, you get on that treadmill for 2 minutes, you get off and you go home. And you might be wondering, why would we be doing this in the first place? Doesn't that seem like a waste? Like, you're at the gym, why not go for longer? Now, yes, if you're there at the gym, I implore you to go for longer, but there's a habit we're trying to master kind of underneath all that first. I actually really like how James Clear puts it in his book, Atomic Habits. The point is to master the habit of showing up. The truth is, a habit must be established before it can be improved. If you can't learn the basic skill of showing up, then you have little hope of mastering the finer details. Instead of trying to engineer a perfect habit from the start, do the easy thing on a more consistent basis. You have to standardize before you optimize. By truly mastering the habit of showing up, we can actually start to begin to improve on the habits we're trying to build. And that's why this 2-minute rule really works. By mastering the habit of showing up to those 2 minutes every single time, you can actually and genuinely start to build those habits in a really healthy way. So it's great. We now have this way of starting. We know that we can't wait more than 2 days, and we know that we need to at least dedicate 2 minutes to begin with to master this showing up habit. So how do we become more consistent? And that's where the third and last way of using the rule of 2 really applies. Never take off more than 2 days. Life can be chaotic at the best of times, and sometimes it's not easy for us to schedule around what we're doing. Maybe you are in school right now and you have lots of classes and multiple exams. Maybe you have lots of extracurricular activities. Maybe you're playing sports, or maybe you have friends that love hanging out a lot. It can honestly make building new habits really tough in our lives. It's why I really like this third instance of the rule of 2, because it actually gives some flexibility to our lives and kind of takes the pressure off our shoulders a little bit. At least that's what I found in my own personal experience. It's just as simple as the other 2. You can never take off more than 2 days once you start to trying to build a habit. Now, for example, maybe on a Monday you decided to go to the gym for the first time and you're pumped, you're excited, and you worked out and you had a great time and you're looking forward to Tuesday to continuing building this habit. Now, what happens if maybe your parents surprise you in the night out saying, hey, your grandparents are coming over for dinner. What do you do? How do you handle that? No, I know for many of us, and at least for me, when that would happen, I would kind of beat myself up and be like, you couldn't make it, you didn't make it happen. You have other things that are ruling your life, and it's hard to, manage those. Now, not to say your grandparents coming over for dinner is a bad thing by any means. It's important to spend time with your family, but you can see where I'm going with this, right? That's where we apply this rule, never take off more than 2 days. Okay, so the Tuesday doesn't work, but Wednesday does. There's no reason to feel guilty about missing the Tuesday. You're missing it for actually a really great reason. And that's where we can apply this rule to everything else in our lives. And really at the end of the day, the goal is to become as consistent as we can. And this gives us the flexibility in our schedules to ensure that we can continue that level of growth in our habits. I think it's great that way. We don't have to fight our schedule as much, because I think in my experience, it's always trying to slot the next time where I can go do this habit I'm trying to build or whatever it is. And it's like, no, I can actually put in this 2-day rule. And sometimes I use it longer in advance. I schedule ahead of time, like, hey, these 2 days I'm gonna need off for X amount of reasons. And I can actually feel okay about it. It was a big thing for me. It was a great mindset shift when I didn't have to worry so much about me trying to upkeep this habit, when I knew I actually had this 2-day rule. Now, it is important to stick to the 2 days, because by the 3rd day, if you don't do it, at least in my experience, it tends to fall off rather quickly and hard to get back on the horse, so to speak. So make sure you stick to that 2 days off if that's really what you're gonna use it for. By following the rule of 2, it can really help us to build these habits quickly and consistently. And it's something that I have in turn used in my life, and it's made some pretty drastic changes in terms of my habit building. And I think it really can do it for you too. I'm looking towards the present and not the future. It's the small incremental builds that are actually gonna make a big difference in the long term. Make sure to spread the Habit Makers Starter Kit with your friends and family. I know it's beneficial for me, and I'm sure it'll be beneficial for those of you out there. If you wanna see another video on a habit forming technique that I've talked about on this channel, please click the video linked in the top corner. It'll be really good and help stack the habit building world in your favor. It's a good reference, I'd check it out. And if you haven't, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. This is what we talk about on the channel all the time, and I'm excited to see it grow. So we'll see you in the next video.